In Wales, a name emerged that carried whispers of tragedy and unanswered questions. Caroline Evans, a story of mystery, suspicion, and echoes that would linger long after the headlines faded. But before we start, make sure you like and subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this. So get ready as we uncover the case of Caroline Evans.
October 6, 1945. A Saturday evening in Coedpoeth, a small village in Denbighshire, North Wales. The Second World War had ended just 5 months earlier in May. Britain was celebrating peace. Life was slowly returning to normal. In Coedpoeth, people felt safe again. Caroline Evans lived on Park Road with her husband, Daniel. She was 39 years old. She worked as a schoolmistress at the local infant school near Wrexham. She was one of the pillars of the Coedpoeth community. People knew her. They respected her. She had taught their children. She was a familiar and trusted face in the village. Every Saturday night, Caroline followed the same routine. She would walk from her home in Coedpoeth to visit her mother, Harriet Williams. Harriet was the licensee of the City Arms public house in Mineira, about a mile away. Caroline looked forward to these weekly visits. She would spend time with her mother, help at the pub if needed, and return home the next day. Daniel, who worked as a clerk, would meet her at the City Arms on Sunday. At 10:30 that Saturday evening, Caroline said goodnight to her husband. She left their house on Park Road and began walking. The route was familiar. She had walked it countless times. The journey would take her along a footpath through woodland known locally as Pant Tywyll. In English, the name means dark hollow. It was a shortcut through the forest that reduced the journey considerably. Caroline felt safe. This was her village. These were her neighbours. Nothing bad happened in Coedpoeth. The night was quiet. Caroline walked along Park Road and reached the entrance to the woodland path. She stepped into Pant Tywyll. The trees closed around her. The path led down through the copse toward Mineira. She would be at her mother's pub within half an hour. Sunday morning arrived. Daniel Evans prepared to walk to the City Arms to meet Caroline as arranged. But before he left, there was a knock at his door. Police officers stood outside. They asked if Caroline had arrived safely at her mother's house. Daniel said yes, as far as he knew. She had left the previous evening. She should be with her mother. The officers exchanged glances. Caroline had never arrived at the City Arms. Harriet Williams had reported her daughter missing. A search began immediately. Police and volunteers spread out across Coedpoeth. They retraced the route Caroline would have taken. They searched the footpath through Pant Tywyll. They checked fields, ditches and hedgerows, anywhere she might have fallen or become injured. Hours passed. There was no sign of Caroline. Then, on Sunday, October 7th, a farmer made a grim discovery in a copse off Park Road near Pant Tywyll. A woman's body lay among the undergrowth. The farmer immediately contacted police. Officers arrived and examined the scene. The body was Caroline Evans. She had marks on her face. At least 2 blows had struck her. Her clothing was disturbed. There were clear signs she had been strangled. This was not an accident. This was not a fall. Caroline Evans had been murdered. The news shocked Coedpoeth. A schoolteacher, a respected member of the community, murdered on a path she walked every week. It seemed impossible. Nothing like this had ever happened in their village. But Caroline was dead. Someone had attacked her in Pant Tywyll as she made her usual journey. The investigation began immediately. It was October 1945. The war had only just ended. Resources were stretched, but the murder of Caroline Evans demanded attention. Detectives from Scotland Yard were called in to assist the local police. The case made headlines across the United Kingdom. A schoolteacher murdered in a peaceful Welsh village. Who could have done such a thing? Detectives examined the crime scene carefully. Caroline's body had been found just off the path she would have walked. She had been strangled with considerable force. Her face showed signs of blunt trauma. Her clothing suggested there may have been a sexual element to the attack. Police began to consider that she might have been the victim of a sexual predator. The day before her murder, Caroline cashed her monthly salary check at her bank. She withdrew part of the balance in £1 notes. Police initially considered robbery as a possible motive. Perhaps someone had known she was carrying money. But that line of inquiry quickly weakened. There was confusion about the banknotes. At first, police believed she had been issued brand new notes in consecutive numerical order. If so, tracing them could have identified the killer. However, it was later confirmed that the notes were not new. They were ordinary circulated notes. That theory collapsed. Still, detectives followed every lead. A member of the Royal Air Force was found carrying several crisp £1 notes. He immediately became a suspect, but he explained that the money had been officially issued to him upon returning from overseas service. A thorough investigation confirmed his account. He was cleared. Police took more than 600 statements. They questioned residents and visitors alike. They asked about Caroline's movements. They asked about strangers. They asked whether anyone had seen or heard anything unusual that Saturday night. Public appeals were issued. One asked whether a young couple seen near the gate at the bottom of Assembly Road at approximately 10:30 that evening, along with a woman who passed along Park Road at the same time, would contact police immediately. If those witnesses existed, they never came forward. In a desperate attempt to break the case, police distributed what they called murder forms to residents of Code Poth. Each person was asked to record their whereabouts at 10:30 on Saturday, October 6, 1945. Who could verify their alibi? The forms were returned, but as the Daily Mirror later wrote, police were left with nothing more than a stack of alibis. The inquest was held on January 15, 1946. Medical evidence confirmed Caroline had been strangled. She had been struck in the face at least 2 times. While there were suggestions of a sexual motive, the exact nature of the attack could not be conclusively determined. The coroner's jury returned its verdict: murder by some person unknown.
The case remained open. Detectives continued investigating, but leads dried up. Months passed, then years. The murder of Caroline Evans became one of North Wales's unsolved cases. The files remained active, but there were no new developments. The killer had vanished, or more likely, the killer lived among them. Someone in Code Poith or the surrounding area knew what happened in Pant Tŵl that October night, but they never spoke. Then, in 1950, something extraordinary happened. A young soldier named John Lionel Raymond Russell was convicted at Ruthin Assizes of murdering a woman named Dilys Myfanwy Scott. The murder had taken place in March Wheel near Wrexham. Russell had shot Dilys Scott at her farmhouse. He was 18 years old. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The jury found him guilty. The judge sentenced him to death by hanging. As the sentence was pronounced, Russell gripped the dock rail. He looked toward the judge and declared that there was another murder the court might be interested in. He claimed that he had killed Mrs. Evans in Code Poith 4 years earlier. He said he had been 14 at the time. Regarding the motive, he stated bluntly that it had been sexual. The courtroom erupted. Russell suddenly lunged toward a woman seated near the dock. He appeared hysterical. Guards restrained him and dragged him to the cells below. His shouts echoed through the courtroom. 10 minutes later, Pale but composed, he was brought back and formally sentenced to death. Police immediately investigated his confession. Could John Russell have killed Caroline Evans? He would have been 13 years old in October 1945, not 14 as he claimed, but age alone did not rule him out. Detectives examined his movements in 1945. They looked at where he had been living. They compared his account with the known facts of Caroline's murder. After careful investigation, they dismissed his claim entirely. Russell had not killed Caroline Evans. He was lying, possibly seeking notoriety, possibly attempting to delay his execution, or perhaps simply unstable, but he was not responsible for her death. John Russell was hanged for the murder of Dilys Scott. His confession to killing Caroline Evans became little more than a footnote in the case. For a brief moment, Caroline's family believed the mystery had been solved, but it was not true. The real killer remained unknown. In May 1951, police formally reopened the Caroline Evans investigation. Officers reviewed the evidence. Witnesses were re-interviewed. Detectives searched for overlooked details, but nothing new emerged. The case went cold once more. Caroline Evans was 39 years old when she died. She was a schoolteacher. She was married to Daniel Evans, a clerk. She lived a quiet and respectable life in Coed Poeth. Every Saturday night, she walked to Minera to visit her mother at the City Arms. She had done so for years. She felt safe. She trusted her surroundings. She knew the path through Pant Tŵyl well. She never imagined that someone might be waiting there. The murder of Caroline Evans is often described as Wales's oldest unsolved murder case. More than 75 years have passed since that October night in 1945. Those questioned during the original investigation are now gone. Whoever killed her is almost certainly dead, but the case file remains open. Cold case investigators have occasionally reviewed the evidence, hoping that advances in forensic science might reveal something missed in 1945. At that time, DNA testing did not exist. Fingerprint analysis was limited. Forensic methods were far less advanced than they are today. But without preserved physical evidence, modern science can offer little assistance. The people of Coed Poeth never forgot Caroline Evans. For years after her death, parents warned their children not to walk alone through Pant Tŵyl. The path became associated with tragedy. Some avoided it altogether, choosing longer routes to bypass the woodland. The fear lingered long after the investigation faded from the headlines. Daniel Evans lost his wife that October night. Harriet Williams waited at the City Arms for a daughter who never arrived. The children Caroline had taught lost their schoolmistress. The community lost someone they trusted. And somewhere, someone knew the truth. Someone knew what happened in Pant Tŵyl, but they never told. The murder exposed how vulnerable even small communities could be. Coed Poeth was not considered a dangerous place. It was a quiet Welsh village where neighbors knew one another. The Second World War had only just ended. People were rebuilding their lives. They believed they were safe. Caroline's murder shattered that sense of security. It proved that violence could happen anywhere, that a routine walk through familiar woodland could end in tragedy, that evil was not confined to cities or battlefields. It could exist in a peaceful village, waiting in the dark. Caroline Evans was buried in the local churchyard. For many years, flowers were left at her grave, especially on the anniversary of her death. Her case was discussed in newspapers and later in true crime publications. It became one of Wales' enduring unsolved mysteries. But as decades passed, memories faded. New generations grew up unaware of her name. The story slowly receded into history. Yet the case remains officially open. It will never be formally closed unless the killer is identified. That now seems unlikely. Too much time has passed. Witnesses are gone. Evidence has aged. Whatever trail once existed has long since grown cold, but the file remains in the archives, a reminder that justice was never achieved, that Caroline Evans never received answers, that someone took a life and was never held accountable. On Saturday, October 6, 1945, Caroline Evans left her home at 10:30. She walked into Pant Tweel, heading toward her mother's pub in Minera. She never arrived. Someone attacked her in that woodland. Someone strangled her and left her body in a copse off Park Road. Someone walked away and carried that secret for the rest of their life. And so Caroline Evans became one of Wales' oldest unsolved murder cases. A schoolteacher killed on a routine Saturday night walk, a crime that shocked a nation and remains a mystery to this day.